I'm out here going through these stuff out in the garage, getting some screws. I found out that code for that hot water heater. You have to have a shutoff switch within so many feet of the hot water heater. And I went up and bought a 30 amp switch because that's 210. It's 30 amp breaker, double throw 30 amp breaker. So I'm just out here getting me some screws, but look at all these. They were my grandpa's. A lot of this stuff's airplane screws and stuff. For airplanes, his passion his whole life was airplanes. My great-grandfather, his father, my mom's grandfather was a bootlegger moonshiner. My father, his dad, my father's grandpa owned a grocery store. And he would ride his bike from downtown St. Louis to Lambert Airport and watch the airplanes all the time. And that's a long-ass ride. You're talking probably 15 miles. But he ended up getting his pilot's license, and he would build single-prop airplanes out in the garage. As a matter of fact, my Uncle Bobby sent me a picture of a couple of them. And I can remember as a kid him what he would do is he'd build everything in the garage, and then he'd take it out to Creve Coeur Air Park and store them out there. And they have a small flight field there. And he would put the wings on whenever he got out to Creve Coeur Airport. And he had Cessna, he had a Piper Cub. One of the planes he had, it had the wheel and it had the pedals on both sides. It was like a trainer where you could teach people how to fly. I remember taking off and when you landed, it was boing, 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 just bouncing down the damn runway. But he was building a low wing airplane. All the planes he ever flew was high wing. And before he died, he was working on a low wing airplane. He almost had it done too. And I flew remote control scale airplanes at a place called Timpa. It's Tucson International Modelplex Association. I used to be the field marshal out there by Tucson, Arizona, and they're scale airplanes. They got more power than a regular one does, like the IMAC airplanes. I got a picture of me with Kevin Miller's IMAC airplane. That plane it's almost 11 foot from tail to the tip of the nose on it, and it's got a 250cc gas engine in it. So you got a lot more power than weight ratio from a normal airplane, but they are built to scale. I started out flying a Cessna, which was a high wing, and you could float more. A high wing will float longer. Now a low wing, whenever I got my P-51D Mustangs, I had two of them. Two World Kit P-51D Mustangs I used to fly. And they both had retractable landing gear and everything. And whenever I would fly the Mustang, that low wing plane, you had to come in a lot faster to land because they didn't float as long as a high wing. So I know the real thing, you probably got to come in hotter in a low wing airplane than in the high wing as well. And he couldn't, towards the end there, he couldn't hardly see, he couldn't hardly hear. I called him my Mr. Magoo. But, he never did get to fly that low wing. And it sucks because he said after the war, I can't remember how many years after World War II, he almost bought a P-51D Mustang. And boy, if he'd have bought that, that'd be worth a fortune right now. There's not a lot of those planes left. Out in Arizona, they got Marana Airport. It's a little small airport out in Avra Valley, and they had a bomber, B-52 bomber, that you could pay money and go up in the bomber. It is loud as hell, and it is cold up in those bombers. Those bombers, their life expectancy was not long at all. But yeah, a lot of this stuff's Grandpa's. See, look at all these little tiny cotter for cables. They'll hold cables and everything in, and I could probably take a plane off, and I know I could fly it in the air. I know all the controls and how to work them in a single prop with the pedals and everything. All you got is your ailerons on your wings. That's you're going side to side, and then you got your rudder on your tail, That'll make your ass end go left or right, and your airspeed helps with lift too. And then you've got your elevator on your tail that if it's down, it's going to nose you towards the ground. If your elevator's up, it's going to push you up towards the sky. But, oh shit, how did it get down there? That buddy of mine out in Arizona that talked me down, whenever I got a hold of that guy that threatened to kill my wife and kids, he was like a father to me. Gary drew that. It's a seat off a wooden chair, and he drew that on there. It's a gal at a hot dog stand. And then these are my license plates. This one's from '01. And then this one's the one me and Amy had on our car when we went out to Arizona. That's weird. That's my birthday, July 11th. That's Arizona tags, Missouri tags. This is the saw I was going to give to John P. It's just a little skill saw. It's not whenever I was framing, working as a carpenter, I had a worm drive. It's a lot bigger saw, and I had a little hanger I could hang it on the rafters and stuff in case I was cutting up in the rafters. I'll show John how I used to cut. If I can find something to cut out here. Let me put this down. Yeah, he was trying to do with that table saw. I know you gotta use what you got, but Dolly told me it's really expensive for you to get things sent to you where you live, or I'd have gave you that saw. I got a bunch of saws around here. Let me find something I can cut. Yeah, I was worried about you getting hurt with that table saw. I don't really see. I had a bunch of lumber in here, but I built a rails next door for the neighbor. He was real heavy and he kept falling from his weight from the truck to the house, and I built him. It's long. It's probably 15, almost 20 foot long railing, and I painted it the trim color of his house over there. But it was just extra lumber I had out here, and I tried to help him, and build him some rails so he wouldn't fall so much. And then the ambulance had to come a couple times, and me and my son, they'd call us whenever he'd go down at the house, and we'd go over and help him up. I knew if the ambulance got called too many times over there, they were going to put him somewhere. And he was 400 plus pounds. I mean, and last time he fell, we went over and he was laying at the end of the bed, in between the bed and the wall, and me and my son, we each got an arm, and we went to pull him up, and he said, "My back." And I said, I love you, Joseph. You're a good man, but I'm not going to try lifting you up. Your back's hurting like that. We're going to have to call an ambulance. And good thing I did, too, because he cracked a vertebrae in his back when he went down. But he had to go to a home after that. That's when I snapped on his daughter over there. Because whenever it was the time before, we got him on the bed, and then I was trying to pull him up so his head would be on the pillow. And his daughter she was in her room, and I could smell that he had defecated. And, I said, "How long has he been laying in there?" And she said, "I don't know." "You don't know? You're right next door. Your room's right next door, and you don't know how long the man's been laying on the floor. And he's got shit, and he's depends." And I did not like that, not one bit. Me and my father don't talk, but I'll be damned if I'd let him lay in shit. He's my father. There's no way I'd leave him laying in his own feces. And you can believe if a 400-pound man went down and I was in the room next door, I would know that he went down. But yeah, Joseph was a good guy. He started losing some weight, and he was doing a lot of work, over at his house and in the yard and cleaning things up. And he was seeing this really good-looking gal, very good-looking gal. And I thought, well, something ain't right with this. And no offense to Joseph, but she was a very pretty woman, and I didn't say nothing to him because maybe she was somebody that, wasn't real shallow or anything. Maybe she just loved people by their heart, not their appearance, but turns out I was right. She took him for $40,000 over there. $40,000. And after that, old Joseph just kind of gave up. I should have said something to him, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I didn't want to insult her in case her intentions were real. And I learned a long time ago, when it comes to Romeo and Juliet shit, it's best to keep your nose out of it and let Mother Nature take its course naturally, because if you get to playing Cupid and stuff, that can backfire on you big time. That's the other thing I didn't do. There's a lot of, me and Nate and my brothers, we got some females that are like sisters to us. I mean, we consider them our sisters. Robin, Sheila, there's a bunch of them. But the girls that hung around in our circle, I never tried having sex with none of them. Because I figured, if things go bad in the relationship, that it could mess up the circle. We had a real tight circle. We were all scarred up kids that we just kind of looked out for each other. We were all lost children. El Niño Perdido, the lost child. But yeah, we were all lost, and and we looked out for each other. But I never tried. And I got a couple sisters that are beautiful women, but just I didn't screw around in our circle because it would mess the circle up, you know. So I didn't do that. And Kenneth, if you watch this video, Dolly could tell you a little bit about me and my wife's relationship. We really, truly have a beautiful relationship. It goes far beyond physical and mental. It's definitely a very deep spiritual thing between me and her. And before that, I had pretty bad luck with women, but a lot of it was my fault too. I was immature and I didn't have a good teacher for how to treat women. So I sure wasn't the best boyfriend to be dating, but I met Amy and that all changed. And when I met her, I wasn't even looking. I was just a butterfly. I went from flower to flower, you know. I wasn't even looking for a girlfriend, much less a wife. And the weird thing about me and Amy getting together is everything was backwards. Like, typically the type of women I went for was jet black, raven black hair, brown eyes. And Amy, she had real short blonde hair, and she wasn't the type, you know, that I typically went for as far as the looks go. And then I asked her, we were all renting a shotgun house, and me and my brothers, there was a few shotgun houses we rented all over town, and we'd pack 4 or 5 brothers in each place, you know. And Eric was doing tats, and Joan wanted a tat, and I woke up one day and my wife was in there with Joan, and Joan was getting a tattoo, and I said to my buddy Bobby, I said, hey, who the fuck's that with Joan? He said, I don't know, man. She come on with Joan to get that tattoo. I don't know who she is. I said, I think I'm going to ask her out. There was just something, I don't know, I can't explain it. There was something that drew me to her. She was different. And I've been telling my wife since we got together, well, about 4 or 5 months after we got together, I feel like I've loved her longer than this lifetime. I really do. And I'm not trying to be blasphemous against what the Bible says and everything. I'm not trying to do that at all. The only evidence in the Bible that might be true is I know there's a part in there where Jesus says, before you were born, I called you each by name. And I don't know. It's like I knew her. Like I loved her longer than just this lifetime. It sounds crazy, but anyhow, I went up and got talking to her, and I put my best moves on her. I asked her if she wanted to go out, and she said, well, I'm seeing somebody. So, no, you know, and I went over, sat down by my buddy Bobby, and he said, what'd she say? So she said, no, man, and she's seeing somebody. At least she ain't a hoe, you know. And I forgot about her. And then some time went by, and I was in a bar I used to hang out in once in a while. And again, everything that I normally would do, I did different. I heard a commotion going on, and I turned around, and some guy had this gal up against the bar, or up against the wall, choking her. And normally I stayed out of shit like that. I just didn't involve myself with it. I was pretty cold-hearted back in the day, and I don't know. The only thing I can figure is maybe I was in a bad mood that night. I think about that night a lot, the what-ifs, you know. But I snatched him up by the throat. I had tunnel vision on him. And I had him with one hand up against the wall, and I was choking him. I kept saying, "How you like it? How you like it?" And I kept hearing somebody say, "Please stop." But I had, like I said, I had tunnel vision, and I choked him until he passed out. And when he passed out, I let go of him, and I was like, "Oh shit, I got beer up there at the bar. Them fuckers will be drinking my pitcher." So I turned to go back up to the bar, and there's Amy standing there. And I recognized her then, and I was like, "Oh, hey." She was the one that was saying, "Please stop." It was her boyfriend. Well, I didn't recognize her. I didn't know that was her. I mean, it's just all, and it was against the way I normally would respond to shit like that. But, so that's how we got together, started seeing each other. And I was bouncing around place to place at the time. And she bounced along with me. She was crashing out on brothers' couches with me, and then we got a hotel room, and we were in that for a while, and I knew she wasn't after me for my money, you know, and I was just gypsying it, and we would hold each other all night long like a jigsaw puzzle, just would not let go of each other. I wish we could still do that, but we're getting older, the bodies are getting sore. But, and then that hotel room we were living in, you go to the hotel rooms now, there's bullet holes in almost every damn wall. You can see where they patched them up. But then I thought, man, I need to save my money and get this woman in somewhere decent, you know. And we got an apartment, and then went out to Arizona, bought a house out there. Didn't finish paying it back because, and people listen to me, we didn't have bad credit, but we didn't have established credit. Don't ever, ever get in a loan without fixed interest. We did not have fixed interest on our loan. And what was happening was the lenders were selling our loan off to other people, and they kept raising it up. We were over 11%. We paid 15 years on that house, did not miss a payment, and we weren't even through the principal on it. Don't ever get yourself into a loan without a fixed interest rate. But then we come back here and we bought this little house because Amy's mom got sick, and she followed me out to Arizona, so I followed her back so we could take care of her mom. But I have no better friend. There's nobody in the world I trust more, and there's nobody in the world I love more. And when you find a woman, I hope that's the kind of woman you find. She never once told me I have to do this or I can't do that. If she would have, it never would have worked. I don't like being told what to do. I might not really even want to do something, but if you tell me I have to or I can't, I'll do it just to show you I'll do what I want, you know? And she never did that. And at some point, subconsciously, I noticed how good she was to me, and I found myself looking for the next good thing I could do for her. And it just went back and forth, and it turned into something truly beautiful that a lot of people don't get in life. And we also, the other thing we did, I think this is the most important thing in any relationship, whether it's parent-child, husband-wife, boyfriend-girlfriend, best friends. It's the most important thing, and that is honesty. You got to be honest, because once you start lying, then the trust is broken. And when the trust is broken, then there's doubt. And when there's doubt, that's when the accusations start. And then the wars and the battles. Once the trust is broken, you know, you can make mistakes. And those can be forgiven. But when the trust is broken, that's the end, you know. If I don't trust somebody, I don't even go around them because they're useless to me. I can't depend on them if I can't trust them. But we always promised each other we would never lie to each other, and we never have. I've even told my best friends, if my wife asks you anything, you tell her the truth. You ain't snitching on me. You tell her the truth. You do not lie to my wife. And I don't do nothing I'm worried about her finding out anyways, but we don't lie to each other. And she's been the biggest blessing in my life. If I wouldn't, I think about that night in that bar, if I wouldn't have been in there, if she wouldn't have been in there, how easily we could have just skipped right off of each other, you know. But usually they come along when you're not even looking, man. And you gotta keep your eyes open. I know one guy, my buddy Johnny, his gal come along and he wasn't paying attention and he lost her. But I'm gonna hop off here. Look, we're stocking up just in case. Just in case there's an apocalypse. But much love to all of you. I got the screws I need, so I gotta get to work. Love you all.